Hello everyone. May I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and by wishing you a happy International Day of People with Disability. As I'm sure you all know, the International Day was last Monday and I was in Sydney that day. So had this function been on the actual day, I could have met you all in person. However, I think it's far smarter of you all to celebrate the International Day 4 days late. That means, because it's a Friday and not a school night, you can enjoy the celebrations just that little bit more energetically. So well done all of you. I did think of telling you that I wouldn't be with you tonight because there'd been a secondment of Lancashire Police to the New South Wales Police Force, so it was no longer safe for blind people to go out at night with their white canes. Several weeks ago, the Lancashire Police Force received a report that a man had been seen walking through town and threatening people with a samurai sword. Of course, they followed up on this report, and one of their more diligent but perhaps less perceptive officers saw an elderly blind man walking to the pub to have a drink with his friends using his white cane. Mistaking the white cane for a samurai sword, the officer in question called on him to stop and then tasered him. A pretty amazing conclusion to reach. However, as I use a dog guide rather than a white cane, I can't claim that excuse. Although, I suppose the same officer, if he were here, might mistake my Labrador for a wild leopard. After all, they do both start with L. However, I am in fact not in Australia, because, as Suzanne knows, if I were, I would make every effort to get to AND's International Day function. I don't think I've missed one for about a decade. But I'm in Jakarta in Indonesia, helping to run some workshops for Indonesian organisations to better equip them to prevent violence against women with disability. An admirable cause, I think you'll all agree, particularly with Lancashire Police on the loose. However, I didn't want to miss the chance of sharing with you a few disability highlights from 2012. On the credit side, progress of the National Disability Insurance Scheme would have to be on top of the list. We're not there yet, but the legislation has been introduced into Parliament, and there seems to be clear commitment on all sides of politics for it to proceed. Unless, of course, you're the Premier of Queensland, Campbell Newman. He can afford millions to upgrade facilities for the racing industry in Queensland. He can afford to co-fund a new series of Big Brother, but he can't afford to contribute to an NDIS. He should be the first one out of the Big Brother house, I would suggest. As many of you would know from the media, I've spent some time this year in court against City Rail. They don't always tell me where I am on their trains. In fact, they have not told me on over 70 occasions since March 2011. I can't take action against them as the Commissioner, but I can as an individual citizen, and that's what I've been doing. Hearings are now complete, and I expect a decision in the matter early next year. Jetstar continue to be on my radar screen. They persist with their wheelchair apartheid. They will only carry 2 passengers using wheelchairs on each flight, and I'm continuing to campaign on that one as well. And assistance animals are still refused access. They and their owners have been refused access to motel accommodation. And only a few weeks ago, 3 women in Melbourne were refused access to a restaurant because they used guide dogs. Let me leave you with an award for one of our higher education institutions in Sydney, which shares a name with a street, a bank, and a monument in the form of a chair overlooking Sydney Harbour. They invited me this year to launch their DDA action plan. In a 3rd floor venue, the lift access through the back door and the kitchen, and only after finding someone with the key to the lift. Well, happy International Day. We've clearly still got much to do. Thanks for the chance to speak with you tonight.